Welcome back, everyone. So glad you're here for today's explainer. If you're the kind of person who just loves dissecting how things work, looking for smarter ways to do things, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating case study on modernizing manufacturing safety. We're going to look at a real-world scenario to see how shifting our focus from the machines we use to the people operating them can literally transform a workplace. So get ready, because we are about to rethink everything we thought we knew about industrial safety. Okay, let's dive into this. 70%. Now, when you picture a factory accident, you probably imagine, a catastrophic machine failure or some faulty wiring, right? But the data tells a totally different story. A staggering 70% of workplace accidents are actually driven by human factors. We're talking about things like faulty attitudes, impulsiveness, fatigue, or just basic non-compliance with standard operating procedures. The machines? Well, they're doing exactly what they're programmed to do. It's the human element that's really driving the danger here. And the impact on the human body goes way beyond just sudden accidents. If you step onto a factory floor, what's the very first thing you notice? The noise, right? Well, according to our source data, noise-related hearing disorders make up a massive 82% of all occupational diseases. 82%! I mean, that is not just a minor issue, that's a systemic health crisis happening right under our noses. This stark statistic dramatically raises the stakes for workplace wellness. We can't just protect workers from immediate injuries anymore. We absolutely have to protect them from long-term occupational disease. So, to solve these massive human-centric problems, we're going to use a clear four-pillar framework. First up, hazard control. Second, safety policies. Third, fatigue management. And finally, wellness programs. To see how this framework operates in the real world, let's look at our subject, KK Factory Sindarian Berhad. This is a semiconductor manufacturer pumping out microchips for international markets. Now, this is a highly technical, high-risk environment. Employees are dealing with chemicals, strict cleanroom conditions, rotating shifts, and super repetitive tasks. And recently, management noticed a pretty troubling trend, an uptick in minor workplace incidents, rampant employee fatigue, and a huge surge in stress-related complaints. Workers were stressed about inconsistent safety gear use and inadequate training. So how do you fix a pressure cooker like that? Well, that brings us to pillar number 1, hazard control, which is all about fixing the physical workspace. We've got to address physical hazards head on, right? Altering the environment to protect the worker before they even clock in. First off, chemical isolation. Instead of workers breathing in dangerous fumes, the factory brings in automated machinery and specialized ventilation hoods to pull toxic substances right out of the cleanroom. Next, we fix the physical strain. Think ergonomic workstations with adjustable seating and padded floor mats. But the real game changer here, task rotation. By making employees switch duties every 2 hours, say, moving from the tiny, fine motor skills of microchip assembly over to quality checks, the factory directly mitigates repetitive strain injuries and extreme muscle fatigue. It's a simple, physical intervention, but it gives the human body a much-needed break. Moving right along to pillar 2, safety policies, or upgrading the workplace culture. Now that the physical space is sorted, we shift gears to culture. And what's really interesting here is how this breaks down the strict legal baseline every facility actually has to meet. Under OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, safety culture isn't just a nice-to-have, it's legally mandated based on your size. If a factory has 5 or more employees, they are legally required to draft and clearly communicate a safety policy. But once you hit 40 or more employees, that threshold changes. At that point, you must establish a dedicated safety committee. You can't just talk the talk, you literally have to build safety into the organization's governance. But look, a written policy is practically useless if the training doesn't stick. The old way of doing things? Sticking new hires in a dark room to watch passive safety videos. It's boring, it's ineffective, and it definitely doesn't build muscle memory. The new requirement is hands-on training. Employees are now required to physically practice putting on their cleanroom suits, their masks, and their gloves correctly. Basically, you have to physically prove you know how to protect yourself before you ever step foot on that floor. And the absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle is how we maintain that training every single day. The solution lies in 2 main practices. First, daily 5-minute huddles. Supervisors run brief briefings on specific safety tips or recent oversights. This directly combats those faulty attitudes we talked about earlier and keeps safety top of mind. Second, the safety buddy system. Workers are paired up to visually double-check each other's PPE, their personal protective equipment, before going onto the production floor. It builds this really great culture of peer-to-peer accountability. All right, on to pillar number 3, fatigue management, where we rethink schedules. Because our sources clearly note that fatigue, worry, and depression are major causes of workplace accidents, we have to rethink how we schedule our humans. Look at this incredibly effective concept: forward shift rotation. Instead of just randomizing shift work, schedules are rotated in a clockwise sequence, so you move from morning to afternoon to night. By stepping shifts forward in this specific order, the schedule actually respects the body's natural circadian rhythms. It's a brilliantly simple adjustment, but it alleviates the chronic fatigue that comes from jarring, unpredictable shift changes. Even with better schedules, though, mid-shift fatigue is going to happen, and the solution here is absolutely vital: quiet recharge rooms. These are designated dark, device-free zones that are completely isolated from that deafening factory floor noise we mentioned earlier. By letting workers take just a brief 15-minute power nap in a totally noise-free environment, you can quickly restore their alertness. This directly lowers the risk of fatigue-related accidents. It's a tiny investment of time, but it yields a massive return in safety and focus. Which brings us to our fourth and final pillar: wellness programs, providing comprehensive support. This is where we go beyond just preventing immediate physical injury and start providing holistic support for the workforce. An effective wellness program proactively encourages a healthy lifestyle. First step, on-site health screenings. Think annual or biannual medical checkups with blood tests and blood pressure monitoring, specifically to screen for health impacts tied to chemical exposure or rotating shifts. Next, funding a confidential employee assistance program, or EAP helpline. This anonymous hotline offers vital psychological support for employees dealing with stress, worry, or depression. Finally, structured stretch breaks. Adding mandatory 5-minute stretching or deep breathing pauses right in the middle of a shift significantly reduces physical tension and effectively lowers stress hormones. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal of all four pillars. When you look at the whole picture, from isolating chemicals to encouraging 15-minute power naps to funding mental health hotlines, you see a complete transformation. By actively tackling the human factors, KK Factory evolves from a high-stress, high-risk plant into a secure, healthy, and sustainable environment. Employee safety and wellness, they aren't just HR buzzwords. They are absolutely essential for sustaining true productivity. Which leaves us with this final, essential thought for you to take back to your own life and career. Look at the rules, the schedules, and the environments you operate in every day, and ask yourself, are your safety policies genuinely protecting the human, or are they just protecting the factory? It's a really powerful distinction. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this explainer today. I hope this framework helps you see workplace dynamics in a totally new light. Keep asking the right questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.